I want to introduce Kyle Rittenhouse. He's going to be speaking on the right to self-defense. Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah. Thank you for introducing me, John. Most of you might know me as a kid from Kenosha, Wisconsin, who was forced to defend my life during the riots in the Summer of Love. I am so thankful that I survived that night, and now I have the opportunity and the privilege to be here before you guys today to tell my true and full story. I would not be breathing and able to talk if I had not defended myself from the violent attacks I faced on August 25th of 2020. I would not be in Nashville, Tennessee today if it weren't for this amazing, beautiful country's constitutional rights to bear arms and the freedoms to cross state lines, which I never would have predicted would have been so triggering to people when I drove 30 minutes. Sometimes I get tempted to go to the border of Wisconsin and Illinois and put one foot on each state line and post a picture just to see a reaction. How many of you guys crossed state lines to get here today? Quite a few? Yep, I see almost everybody's hands up. But on a more serious note, I am forever grateful that God allowed me to be born in the great United States. I'm thankful how He has been with me through all of it, and I'm so grateful for the support that He has allowed me to receive from all of the Americans who came to my defense. My life before August 25th never prepared me for the feeling of being forced to practice self-defense. There is no scarier feeling than feeling helpless while being ambushed by a mob, except the fear of being found guilty despite the fact that you are innocent. This is why the right to self-defense is so imperative in our country's safety and future, and why the Second Amendment needs to be protected more in this generation than ever before. Growing up, I was from a single parent household, being the only man in the house. I had an instinct to protect, and I want to fix problems. However, as you can imagine, living with two teenage sisters, there was not many of their problems that they wanted help fixing. So I became a police explorer and a firefighter cadet. I loved being around police officers who mentored me and other teenagers my age. I wanted a career that would help people who were hurting. I knew that whatever I did for my future, that I wanted it to be for a good cause. When the summer of 2020 hit, I was shocked and disgusted by what's happening to my community. I wanted to help people in my hometown who were being injured, whether they were on my political side or not. So I chose to help clean up some of the graffiti and damage caused by the riots. I talked with the owners of a local used car dealership and offered my assistance. We exchanged contact information, and I would later be asked by a friend named Nick Smith to come and help protect the business, where I would meet the owners again, and they thanked me for being there. I brought with me an AR-15 style rifle similar to the one we just auctioned off to protect myself if needed. Throughout the night, I provided medical assistance to those who needed it. I put out several fires. I was pepper sprayed by a random person for simply asking if anybody needed help. And I was also threatened by a man I would later be forced to defend my life from. This man's name is Joseph Rosenbaum. Mr. Rosenbaum threatened to kill me. He said, if I catch any of you fuckers alone, I'm going to kill you. Later on that evening, Mr. Rosenbaum did in fact catch me alone. I was standing at Ultimate gas station when I received a call that there were vehicles being put on fire at one of the vehicle lots we were protecting. I asked for a fire extinguisher from the people at the gas station, and then I started heading southbound Sheridan Road to the car source lot where the fires were being started. I didn't know this, but there was an ambush waiting for me. Mr. Rosenbaum was hiding behind a black Duramax truck, which they have set on fire. Mr. Zeminski, a 6'3" giant, armed with a handgun, was at the front of the truck. And as soon as I get to that truck to put out the fire, Mr. Zeminski steps towards me. Another person off in the distance with a large pipe pole starts moving towards me. And Mr. Rosenbaum, the man who threatened to kill me if he caught me alone, ran out from behind that black Duramax and started to chase me. He chased me through the parking lot, in between cars. My heart was pounding. I was scared. I turned around briefly as I was still running away from Mr. Rosenbaum. He threw something at me. I pointed my rifle in his direction. It did not deter him. I kept running, and he continued to chase me. Mr. Zeminski, the man armed with a pistol, he fired one gunshot into the air, and I ran a little further until I could not run anymore. I was trapped. There was a wall of cars in between me, and on the other side of that wall, there was about 100 rioters. I turned around. I had nowhere to go. Mr. Rosenbaum was directly in front of me. He was lunging at me, and he had his hands on my gun, and that's when I...
the right thing.
And that's when I turned around. Mr. Rosenbaum jumping on my gun, screaming, "Fuck you." He was trying to steal my firearm away from me, so I defended my life. If I didn't protect myself, Mr. Rosenbaum would have followed through with his promise. I was alone, and he caught me alone. He was going to kill me. After being attacked, I ran around the vehicle to check on Mr. Rosenbaum. He was getting first aid from a reporter who was trying to document the situation. I would have helped Mr. Rosenbaum, but there was a mob of rioters forming. They started to scream things such as, "Get him, kill him, cranium that boy." It left me with no choice but to run again for my life. I ran back down Sheridan Road, northbound towards the police line, where I was chased by hundreds of people who were calling for my execution. I was scared. I was in shock of just having to shoot someone trying to kill me, and I would be forced to defend myself again in a matter of seconds. Mr. Grassroots, a man who pointed a gun at my head, he approached me and he asked where I was going. I told him, to the police. We could see the red and blue lights. Soon after, I was hit for the first time with a skateboard by Anthony Huber. Then immediately after, a man in a white tank top hit me in the back of the head with a hard object. This caused me to stumble to the ground. Once I was on the ground, there were several rioters surrounding me, and I pointed my rifle in their direction, and it deterred some of them, but it didn't deter Jump Kick Man. Jump Kick Man kicked me in the face, causing my head to get bashed into the concrete. I fired 2 shots at him and I missed. Immediately after I defended my life from Jump Kick Man, Mr. Huber, the guy who hit me already in the head with the skateboard, this time he was putting his knees in my chest, grabbing my gun, and bashing my skull in with his skateboard for a second time. This left me with no choice but to defend myself from his violent attack. After that attack, Mr. Grassroots, the man who asked where I was going, the man I told to the police, running in that direction towards the police. He was armed with a handgun this time. I was on the ground. A pistol was in his hand and he took a step towards me, firearm in his hand, ready to go. I pointed my rifle in his direction and he backed up, false surrendering, putting his arms up, and then I lowered my rifle and then he pointed his gun directly at my head and I shot him once, hitting him in the arm in which he was holding the gun. It was less than 5 minutes that all of these attacks took place. It all happened extremely quickly, and it was these 5 minutes that would change my life forever. After I stand up after these attacks, I start heading towards the police line to let law enforcement know what happened. I was told to go home, get out of the area. One of the cops pepper sprayed me, so I backed away from the police car I approached. The Kenosha Police Department was closed and it was not accepting visitors, so turning myself in there was not an option. I went home, I met with my family, and I told them what happened. And then I went to the Antioch Police Department, the town I was from, and turned myself in. I did nothing wrong, and I did what I had to do to stay alive. I never imagined that I would have no choice but to protect myself from attackers trying to trample me, steal my firearm, beat me with skateboards, and bash my head into the hard asphalt ground. That terrifying feeling of trying to run away but being chased down is one I want to forget, but never will. The pure panic and terror that ran through my body and every other single person who has been in a similar situation to mine is indescribable. It's not a memory I wish on anyone or hope another person will ever have to experience, but I believe that it is important to talk about the feeling of being forced to defend your own life from unwarranted attacks. I constantly see in the media news stories unfold of more and more self-defense cases like mine. Daniel Perry in the great state of Texas. He was one of the men who was forced to protect himself in the same way I was. His car was surrounded by rioters, and a man with an AK-47, this was Garrett Foster, a man armed with an AK-47, raised his firearm at Daniel Perry. Daniel Perry did what he was trained by the Army. He defended himself, and he did it near perfectly, but a Travis County DA still convicted him. I hope that the Board of Pardon and Paroles in Texas does the right thing, and honestly, I think it's up to us with spamming their lines with phone calls. I'm sure we can get this number out there somewhere to make sure that they set him free. I can't even begin to imagine what Sergeant Daniel Perry is feeling right now. He's sitting alone in a jail cell. He looks like he's lost a lot of weight from the last photos I've seen. I don't think he's getting taken care of well. And all for defending your own life. This is what we're up against. Travis County DA, we need to get him out of office. We live in a crazier time than ever. Mental illness, crime, and violence are at an all-time high. Politicians are doing nothing about it. They want to run in circles and complain about gun control and everything else. We have gun control laws that they don't enforce, but they want more. It's honest bullshit to me. The right to self-defense is sacred, and it should be protected at all costs. It saved my life that night, and it saved countless other lives. I wouldn't be here today, and many other people would not be on this earth if it wasn't for it. Thank you guys for...
Look, everybody, let's give it up for Kyle Rittenhouse.